Welcome to the Insights to Communicate podcast with Adam Probalski, where market and opinion research come together with public affairs and PR.
All right, Mudcat Arnold, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. Mudcat's with Corsair Campaigns. He's based out of Nashville, and we're going to have a fun conversation about politics, public affairs. Mudcat, welcome to the show.
Adam, I appreciate you having me on.
So you've got a colorful, maybe not the right word, but like an interesting path to the political and public affairs success you've had. A bunch of different jobs in politics. Why don't you kind of give us a little bit of the path of how you got to where you are today?
I got into the business the old-fashioned way, nepotism. My mother was an elected official. She was on the school board in Prince County, Mississippi. And since I was 19 years old, pretty much all the money I've ever made was from politics. In one form, fashion, or another. Like I taught ACT prep for the Princeton Review for a little while, was a runner at a law firm, and I played cards to make my rent for a couple of years. But beyond that, really, my professional life has been in politics. When I was in high school, I went to the state capitol and paged for my state senator. And when I went to college, he called and said, I promised the governor I would send some people to the office to volunteer. Would you go? And I did. And about 3 weeks later, they put me on the payroll as a part-time organizer running the phone banks Tuesdays and Thursdays. I met some people. The next year, I was getting paid to run campaigns around the Gulf Coast. And, met a consultant, hooked me up with a U.S. Senate campaign in Rhode Island. We went out for Senator Whitehouse's 2006 campaign when we flipped the Senate, defeating Lincoln Chafee. And, man, I'd found my people. Like, it was, I joined the circus, and I never looked back. There were some things I was supposed to do. I had law school applications and had deferred law school entry and a bunch of other stuff. But really, I got there, and it was like, man, this is all I've ever wanted to do. And it has been, pretty much all I've ever done.
So, is there a mentor, someone in your career that like you can point to and say, that man, that woman was like, what made my career or gave me the best advice?
Oh yeah. There are three people. I'll say four. Every promotion that I got in sort of the early years, going from organizer and paid canvas director to field director, going from field director to campaign manager, every one of those is because Bob Kramer went in a room and told somebody they needed to hire me. Bob was an early advocate for me. Kendra Sue Derby, I say, and Kendra Sue Derby is a consultant out of Atlanta who is, she's been at DS. She was, worked for Tester, worked, was a state director for Obama, worked at DS, all that stuff. She's, now got every, politician in Georgia that is making national news. She works for the mayor of Atlanta, works for Congresswoman McBath, etc. She's got a solid crew down there. After my mom died, when I was 25, I didn't need so much professional help as getting the rest of the way into maturity. And Kendra Sue did a bunch of that for me. And then, Dean Nielsen, I talk to every day out of CN4 Partners in Seattle. Dean is getting me through the first year of being in business on my own and has been, a friend and advocate for a long time. He was the senior advisor for a campaign in Seattle, Darcy Burner's 08 congressional race, where I was the field director. And we've just been in touch ever since. And then I would be remiss if I didn't say Brad Chisholm. Brad Chisholm, out of Chisholm Strategies, longtime phone guy, huge in the AAPC world, has been. He was, I think, the second consultant I ever met, and he was the first person that I had met who was making a living in politics that had an accent like mine. Like, we can be Democrats, we can be Southern, and that there's a place for that in the world. And you know, uh, every place I get to, and I call Brad, and I'm like, "Hey, Brad, this hot new thing just happened. Look at this thing." He's like, "All right, well, let me tell you the next two things that are about to happen." He has always been there before me, and has always told me what is in front of me. And yeah, like, those are the four people that just, like, I don't, I am not walking around without them. Like, I am, probably managing Pizza Hut.
That's pretty. That's awesome, and I've got similar story of mentors, people who've kind of taken me in a lot of places, protected me, been my guardian angel, kind of like that. And I think it's a little bit hard for some people who aren't in this world to understand how those relationships form and how strong those bonds are, and why someone would go to great lengths to be so supportive and so helpful. I mean, you're not writing a check to any of those poor people. Like, they're lucky if you bought them a drink, right? So how do you explain to people outside of politics like what those relationships are like, and why people are so helpful to each other in this business?
Hey, so Ainsley Mendelson over at Berlin Rosen is, we are very close. She is a dear friend. We do a lot of projects together. And we were talking about this Tuesday. Um, Today's Thursday. So 2 days ago. She had lost a friend. Somebody who was in the business died unexpectedly. Um, and was having a moment about it. And we, stopped and reflected about this for a minute. So this is very topical.
Yeah.
The best I can come up with is that because this is an intimate world, a client has to trust you. A client has to let you tell their story, to summarize their biography, their life, to do in 46 words something they've spent 45 years building. And that is a trust thing. When we work together as colleagues, I am trusting you to take care of this person who is, paying my bills. And then a lot of times, our boats rise and fall together. When a candidate wins, when a candidate loses, uh, the thing happens to the team. It does not happen to the individual consultant. And people expect that you sort of roll together after that stuff. So it is, these relationships are built on trust, and at a certain point, you kind of realize, as we say here at Corsair, you got to have a crew. This is a team sport. So, we aspire to be the crew for people who want to be trusted.
That's a great way of explaining it. So you've got not so unique, but a business that's a little bit different than some others in political world, because you do politics and you do public affairs, which I don't think is a big huge leap, but some consultants do, and I have a high appreciation for people who kind of like take their political skills and use it in other worlds. So tell me about how you kind of made that leap from just running campaigns, being involved in campaigns, to doing the work for corporate stuff and for public policy.
Well, I'll tell you about some of our corporate campaigns. We are, we live in Nashville, or I live in Nashville, and we are doing a little bit of work in the music business. We've made some music videos for artists. Social content is in demand as it is in the political sphere. Artists, Jesus Christ, they are living and dying by what they can put on social media. So, in the sense that we are content producers, we're breaking into some of that. We did a campaign this year for Texas Beer Company. And this was, I'll tell JD and Spicy about this later. Some of the most fun we have ever had with a project because they had really strategic goals. They had, as sales across the board this year have shrunk, just, like the economy shrinks. Some of their retailers are being a little more strategic about what they're doing with their shelf space and where product is. So they were in a position where they had to defend some of their retail outlets. They're in 146 HEBs and 12 Costco's and 1,400 liquor stores around the state. But they're on a bunch of cut lists. And if you get cut, you lose the opportunity to make revenue out of that geography, right? Like you lose your point of sale. So we came in we did some great creative. A ton of fun for us. We got to work with one of the cooler fashion photographers. They do a lot of stuff for Michael Kors and Macy's. Hired them to do a beer campaign and models and the whole thing. It's why you go into the ad business, right? Models and bottles. And they got to make some really compelling, cool stuff there. And then use that with our political ad buying tool set to really drive interest in the brand and consumption behavior in specific geographies, right? Like the store has a spot.
Right.
And that was a ton of fun. And I think it's borne some fruit for them. We're very excited about that. Winning in the commercial game is very different than winning in the political game, right? Like there's no end date. Right? It's about the margin of improvement from last month to this month, or last year to this year. We've done some consumer packaging design. We have the best production team. We have the best artists in the business, and I am looking for more places to make more art all of the time. So we worked with a cannabis company to do the design for. They're bringing out a line of THC sodas. We did the design for those. And so, that is where we have been in a corporate sense from Corsair. Now, I will say our public affairs business, we don't take clients that have a profit incentive. Like it's just a thing. We are not changing the law for people to make money. I have done that work in the past. I worked at a public affairs firm. It's why I moved to Nashville. I got a job building out a referendum business at a public affairs firm. We did a great job with it. Did a bunch of NFL referendums. Did a bunch of grocery referendums for big retailers. It's where I got into the alcohol stuff, and had a ton of fun with that and gaming. So I have very much been in that world, but I started to understand the intersection of corporate life and politics working for the Credo Super PAC. In 2012, I got a call from Becky Bond. We're going to launch this campaign, Take Down the Tea Party 10. Well, who's Credo? Who's the Credo Super PAC? It's a phone company. It's out of San Francisco, right? Like they sold cell phones to, I think when I was there, they were like 3 million users or something. And they were using that money to fund the progressive movement. They were huge donors to Planned Parenthood, etc. And then after Citizens United, they say, oh, well, we can just do this ourselves. And so they kept up those contributions, but also built an in-house super PAC. And, we launched campaigns in 11 congressional districts around the country, defeated 5 incumbents. This is when we were the field arm that took out Dan Lundgren. When Ami Bera flipped that seat, we had the office in Carmichael that they were knocking the doors out of, right? We were the IE field army, and Bera showed all his money to Median Mail.
Interesting.
So that's really like I have always had at least, kind of one eye on the intersection of corporate life and politics.
Yeah.
With the public affairs that we do today, it's really like advertising, like legit advertising, and then like campaigns for unions and LCB. Our public affairs work is very progressive. Um, the advertising work is not, attempting to influence the government.
Right. More on the taking your skills and targeting and figuring out how to change behavioral change, which
Mm-hmm.
is. Uh, so do you've got an example of where polling has saved your back, or polling's told you something you didn't think?
Every time.
One of them.
I mean, uh, look, I have great relationships with pollsters. The there's this whole question, and I get it from candidates. I don't get it out of the industry or corporate clients or anything. It is very specific to candidates. It's why poll? Everybody says polls are wrong. And the answer has been, was, and will be the polls weren't wrong. One, it's a directional instrument. Two, there are margins of error. We're seeing a lot of elections now where we have, a competitive election now. When I first started, you kind of thought 4 to 6 points was like a winnable seat. At this point, it's 2 points, and if you can't find a path to victory out of a turnout voter or a new registered voter, that's probably not as competitive a seat as you think. And it has been, that is too close a margin for every pollster every time. But I still stand firmly with my pollster friends because we need the message testing. We need to know, like splitting a bio, right? Like, what version of your story do we tell? Is the bedrock question for every campaign. My version of the message triangle, and it's a message triangle to a media consultant is like a four square to a car dealer, right? Like, we can all do them upside down. It is your number one hustle. The way I say this is voters are looking to answer three questions: who are you? Who are you for? And what are you going to do? And the only way to get reliable answers about what voters want to hear about which version of yourself is going to resonate best is to do a poll. The answer to I've talked for 3 minutes now about a question kind of around what you asked because I'm a politician. The but to address that specifically, tell me a story about when pollsters were instructive for the job. The answer is every time. I mean, we just did this thing. For the last year, we have been working with both teachers unions in Texas, AFT, and the TSTA, their NEA affiliate, to fight vouchers. And the message guidance that we got from NEA, from pollsters, was absolutely instructive. And they tell you you need to make ads that make these four cases.
Right.
And that was like something you're not going to do with any sort of blunt instrument, right? Like, you got to get in, you got to have they oversampled a ton of people. You had to have a bunch of subs, oversampling women, oversampling parents, and what they really got to, which was instructive for us, was that every parent in these targeted state house districts, where we really had to work to hold the anti-voucher vote, is coming to this fight in a different way. They are coming to this because they are concerned about extracurriculars. They are concerned about access, not being able to. There are no public or private schools in a lot of places in Texas. 95% of them are in the cities. If you don't live in a city, you don't have a private school option to use that voucher at. And people are worried about equity, worried about the impact of functionally segregating schools, and losing resources and teachers. So every one of those arguments got its own set of ad creative, so that we were able to make an effective case to everybody who would be impacted and could be activated to call their legislator. If we don't have the poll with that degree of specificity, you would think people don't like vouchers, but you would never be able to motivate enough of them to make a difference, because we are able to stack all of the ways that people want to respond, the thing that's motivating them.
Yeah.
8 times. The governor has gone to the state house 8 times and said, by God, you are going to give me vouchers. And every time, including in 3 special sessions now, a coalition led by union members that includes 8 Republicans has stood up and said, no, we believe in public education in Texas, and public education is for everybody. We're able to do that because of the message guidance we got from pollsters. I can say the same thing. We flipped the only state house seat to flip in Texas in 2022 was in North Texas in Collin County. We got outspent by over $1 million, and if it were not for the backbone of the polling, we had a great candidate. There's a case study about it on the website.
Cool.
Who she just wouldn't quit. Halo Police is just all work, all go. And when we were able to get to parity, despite in terms of media impressions, by triaging arbitraging the difference between what they were spending on cable and what we could get in OTT and the video on demand products, and our pre-roll program, because we had a poll that said these are your must wins. This is the demographic you got to have. We could shift money to those demographics and arbitrage winning the impression war with those folks and letting everybody else that they were showing ads to go. So that sort of resource effectiveness, it only happens because you've got a great pollster.
Yeah. I love it. All right, let's switch it up a little bit. Talk to me about how you work. Are you a Google Docs or Microsoft? Are you Slack or Zoom? Or are you, how do you technically get the work done internally? Talk to your clients. What are those tools that you got to have to get done?
Our tech deck is stupid simple. I really believe that everything should be unbreakable.
Okay.
When I say something should be stone stupid, it means in the worst case scenario, it works. And for us, by and large, communicating stuff is all Google. It's G Suite. We're on Gmail. We use Google Docs. We use Google Drive. We use internally Dropbox. Like the production folks are really committed to that platform. It turns out there's a reason. The upload speed, the access speed on Dropbox versus Google Docs. Like we've sat and done it in the studio. We're like, our production manager over there is working on Dropbox on his machine. I'll work on Google Docs on my machine, and his machine goes faster. The same Wi-Fi connection. It is a superior product for file storage and management. But internally on the team, we still keep most things in Google folders because it's easier for me to give people access. And then On the actual workflow side, we are an Adobe shop. Everything we do is done in Premiere, InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, right? Like, we believe in Adobe. Portability, the when we have tried to swap stuff from, say, DaVinci to Premiere, not all the file formats render the same way. They're not all necessarily compatible when you bring different sorts of assets into the machines. So all the editors that we work with, everybody's on an Adobe system. And their cloud management stuff, both from like Frame.0 and all of their the Adobe Cloud system project management stuff, has been ideal for distributed workflow. Feel strongly about my allegiance to Adobe that way. So
That's great.
The answers are Google and Adobe.
I love it. And then news. What do you got to read? First of all, what's the Tennessee insider political stuff that you have to read every day that like I wouldn't even know about?
The paper record's a Tennessean, but the Tennessee holler is where politicos talk to each other these days. And that has been having an insider progressive newsletter who's enabled communication in the state in a big way, and to Justin Canoe and the folks that are involved in that, well done. I read my everyday is Daily Coast morning news. That morning drop, I read every day. We are big. Our core markets are Georgia, Texas, Austin, Dallas, Houston, New Mexico, Seattle, and Las Vegas. That is, those markets are 85% of our revenue. And so to stay current in those places every day, it is the AJC, Greg Bluestein's Twitter account in Georgia. Dallas is harder. The Dallas Morning News is just like, they're cranky about progressive stuff. It's one of the last editorial boards that leans conservative. They will just outright, they've endorsed insurrectionists. They're just like, it's not a place where I would expect to find high quality journalism. So we end up doing other stuff in the Dallas markets. There are blogs, there are Twitter accounts where we get a lot of news. Houston Chronicle's very different position. Those folks know. It is a first-rate newspaper. And then, Seattle, shit, man, we read The Stranger. Like, that is, like, the alt weeklies have, they've always had a soft spot in my heart. But they remain, the ones that still exist, are first-rate journalism. They get the rumors, they get the news. So, right. And like, if I'm getting it out of the newspaper, everybody else has known for a month. So, that's really what we think about for news. I read campaigns and elections every day, like their daily newsletter. I read all the time.
Yeah. All right. Last up is words to live by. Do you have a mantra or something you think about all the time? Something that you live by? Some phrase or philosophy?
Do no harm, and that ends up being like a huge thing, right? Like when you start to think about second order impacts, are we doing good? Is it becomes a big question. But really, we are, the goal of the business um, is, you know, to to do good, to go out and be advocates and be activists to make the impossible happen. We're working for people who are trying to empower their communities and manage the political process for good, and like that is frequently a complicated business position. And so we have, a value stock that just says we do good. We do the thing that makes uh, other things possible. All right, we deliver the impossible is one of the core values of the company.
That's great. I love it. Well, super grateful for you being with me and sharing everything, Mudcat. Hopefully we connect again soon, and thanks again.
All right, thanks, Adam. I appreciate the time.
This has been Insights to Communicate with Adam Probalski, president of the woman and Latina-owned market and opinion research firm, Probalski Research.